the clock on the wall says it is 9 o'clock in the AM in the morning time. Good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, Peter Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, to you wherever you are. It's a glorious Wednesday morning. I'm not sure what you might be going through. You might be troubled on many sides, but I promise you it's going to be a really, 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 really great day. We're getting ready for To The Point for today, the 23rd day of the month of October, a month that is slowly slipping away from us. But certainly, we're happy to have with us this morning the trade unionist, George Mason. And this morning, we'll be discussing the role of the trade union in the whole conversation of pension reform. And certainly it would be remiss of me if I don't say welcome to all of our viewers, those of you in GBN's Channel 7 and Channel 11, or if you in radio, that's Classic 105.5 and 105.9, and certainly those of you that's chiming in via our social media platforms, be it YouTube or Facebook. I want to say thanks, good morning again, and welcome to the program. Good morning, Comrade Mason. It's indeed a pleasure having you in the studio with me this morning.
Good morning, JC. It's an honor for me to be in a company, man, on this bright Wednesday morning.
Well, when I heard it was you, I thought that I want to get my best apparel so that I can match up with you. But George, again, thanks for being part of this morning's conversation. And remind you folks, we start the initial conversation and we open up the lines later on in the cover run, maybe half an hour's time, so you can chime in and add. Certainly feel free, those of you that's on social media, you can make your contributions, or you can feel free to chime in then, sending comments via our Facebook, our WhatsApp portal, 435-2041. George, pension.
Yeah.
It has been one of those delicate, dicey conversations that has played out in many different forms. When the NDC administration came in, there were some payouts that was made. But either way, in the last couple of years, it has been a very delicate conversation, and certainly one that many would agree that government has to take a lead. There's been conversations about pension reform and how that happens. How does that conversation start?
Well, let me say good morning to all the listeners, both local and online. It's a privilege this morning to be here, and I hope at the end of it, the role of the union and the reason for pension will be clearly understood. It will be remiss of me, however, Joe, if I don't thank God for the opportunity to be alive today.
Right.
In 1983, around this time, I was hiding.
Hiding?
Hiding, literally hiding.
Right.
Because of the events of October 19th. It had always been a yearning on my part that this day, October 19th, be memorialized in a solemn way.
Right.
So much so that I became a member of the Maurice Bishop Heroes and Martyrs Foundation, and I took part in election twice for the Maurice Bishop Patriotic Movement.
Mm-hmm.
And the rallying call was that October 19th should be highlighted as a significant day for solemnity, reflection, thanksgiving, and praise to God. And this year, it happened. It was a struggle that we fought in the election, Joe. I won twice. 1984 in St. Andrews, Southeast.
Uh-huh.
I got 17 votes.
You've kept tabs over the years.
I got 17 votes. In 1990, again contested, I got 23. This time in the St. Andrews Southwest Constituency.
Upward mobility.
But the theme was always that October 19th should be memorialized, should be recorded for posterity.
Right.
What happened over the years, we are so ashamed of how the revolution ended that I didn't share with our children and grandchildren. So it's no surprise this year when it was the declared holiday and no amplified music, which I strongly supported. There was a hue and cry because nobody saw people jumping off the fort, jumping onto a tree branch, and the branch breaking and falling with all the people on it and falling on stones. They were not around.
I guess that's why whenever the conversation comes up, it conjures up so much emotions, and we keep saying, even Monday when we were having the conversation, that it is still, the emotions are still raw. There's still room for healing. Some individuals, they often say that time heals everything. We understand and appreciate that that's not always the case, and the whole case of healing comes with forgiveness. But at least I'm happy that you are in a better place after 2 campaigns. Here we are, 17, then 23 votes to your tally. You are here with no votes, no elections, but alive. And we give God thanks and praise for that. And it's in that backdrop, because certainly that's where the conversation about pension comes in. So for persons who were there and thinking that we shifted the conversation, we just provided the backdrop as to what transpired in that period, and with the whole conversation of pension, whether or not you government, you when you came into the workforce, if you're a government employee, and those of course who benefited from it, and those who've labored for years and still have this rallying cry as to what will happen at the end of the tenure as a public servant. That being said, a conversation must be had, and certainly an active participant in that conversation will always be the trade unions.
So let me just give us a backdrop. The greater Constitution guarantees a pension without any contribution from the employee once the employee is a permanent worker in the public service.
And again, before you, and we want to take our times, the Constitution.
The Constitution.
Our Constitution.
Our Constitution.
The Bible.
1973 Constitution.
That Constitution that makes us who we are as a people. That's an inalienable right. Right.
That guarantee was written because of the practice of the colonial government to ensure that we, the sovereigns in the colonies, got something at the end of our tenure of employment in the public service at the behest of the Crown. At the behest of the Crown. So that was enacted in 1973 because of the practice, which was formalized in 1958.
Right.
In 1973, the Constitution was looked at. 1974, we had independence.
Right.
So this new Constitution became the mantra going forward. By 1979, we had the People's Revolution, which suspended the Constitution. However, although this Constitution was suspended, pensions as per the Constitution was still paid by the then government.
Right.
Because it was a constitutional requirement.
Okay.
In 1983, April 1983, the then government, the People's Revolutionary Government, through People's Law, I think People's Law number 9 or 10, I'm subject to correction, enacted the National Insurance Scheme, which took into consideration all the statutory rules and regulations and the constitutional underpinning that guaranteed people a pension going forward. So with the NIS, you had the encompassing of what was then the Provident Fund, which gave, at the time, the economy was based primarily on agriculture. So it gave the estate workers something to go at the end of their tenure.
Right.
So NIS incorporated that into its policy. But the Constitution was still suspended.
Right.
What NIS did, however, Joe, is it gave the technician who is not a government employee, the plumber who is not a government employee, but who is employed by the private sector, it gave them an opportunity, including me, who is a white-collar worker in the private sector. It gave us an opportunity
to go
through a contributory process to become eligible for pension.
Okay.
So it opened up the arms of the law so that other people can be eligible, but through a contributory pension.
Okay.
The government mandate to continue paying full the contribution for government employees continued. So you had you had a parallel pension program running. One through the Constitution,
right,
which government paid fully, and then you had the one from the NIS, where it was contributory.
Okay.
Perhaps the People's Revolutionary Government imploded. It killed itself. And along with it, a lot of innocent people. And the Constitution was restored.
Right. Which means by default that the pension that was guaranteed by the Constitution. Okay, remember we did say
it never ended.
Right.
It continued. But now, because the Constitution is now restored, it never gave credence to ensuring that pension became part of the way forward.
But let me ask a question though. Upon the suspension of puts in the context for me, the suspension of the Constitution, and when restored, am I to reasonably assume that upon its restoration, that all that was guaranteed and covered initially, shouldn't it just
should have been
automatically be part of that restoration process?
No, but it was not.
It wasn't.
Because with the enactment of the NIS, that was suspended.
Okay. But
so when NIS came,
right,
the 1958 Pension Act was suspended.
Okay.
1973 Act, constitutional requirement which guaranteed pension based on the 1958 understanding, that was suspended. So let me correct myself. Once the NIS became the pension, the government pension was suspended. So I want to make that correction quickly.
Right.
However, the pension was never reintroduced. Instead, the politician of the day came up with a pension for themselves.
Right.
And to fast track now, you had the matches, you had the clamor, you had governments upon governments, government saying one, another government saying the next, and the matter continued in abeyance until the workers couldn't take no more, and led by teachers,
right,
they took to the streets. And they took to the streets at a juncture where election was in there. The government of the day said they couldn't pay because it would affect all other programs. The one lying in wait, trying to come in, said, if I win, even though I have to borrow, I will pay. Because that is a constitutional matter.
That cannot, should not, by any whims and fancy, unless it is the Constitution itself
changes. Yes.
And that can only be done through the will of the
people.
The people.
Sure.
And that was never done.
75% majority in a referendum.
And that was never done.
That was never done.
Therefore.
So, election came, and I'm always somebody who I could jump into things that concern me.
You're fast.
It's a bad habit.
In local politics, you're fast.
So I decided, look, what is happening there is important. It affects people's well-being. So although I was a leader of a trade union in the private sector, I was front, back and center in the struggle for the reinstatement of pension. So election came, the party in opposition won, and in quick time, the pension was paid. Now let's fast. Let's rest that day for now. If you want to take a break, take a break now. Because when I come in full steam.
Let's go.
Okay. Now, in 1992, 93, the country was in such a financial situation, fiscal bind, that the then government introduced a homegrown structural adjustment program.
That was on the then Prime Minister Brazan.
Brafitt.
Prime
Minister Brafitt, yes. That homegrown structural adjustment program was to fix some of the fiscal deficiencies, and that was put our house in order. By 2013, we had another problem. We had to go back now to the IMF and come up with a homegrown program. But the IMF decided, well, you look at it for how to manage your business, so I go show you how to manage your business. 3,000 workers have to go. You know, a lot of people don't know that. The IMF recommend that 3,000 people have to be sent home. Similar remedy was given, similar medicine was given to Barbados.
Right.
Fidel Short, government in Barbados, Fidel Short accepted the 3,000, but Grenada showed the wisdom of the Permanent Secretary, Mr. Antoine, who was one of the main catalysts of that mindset. Said, okay, let's look at the attrition program. Every year, X amount of people leave the system.
Right.
So let's see if for every 10 that leaves, we may take back 3.
Okay.
So you had a Fiscal Responsibility Act. So the IMF decided, look, I want to leave all you to run your thing again. I'll give you all some rules and regulation. So the Fiscal Responsibility Act said you cannot spend more than 9% of your GDP on administrative costs, which included salaries and so on. The Fiscal Responsibility Act said there must be a FROC, Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee, FROC, to ensure that periodically the finance is being well spent and properly recorded. Then election came, so I'm coming back now to where we left off, and I'm coming back now to the election. The pension is paid, but in the campaign, as was done in the discussion with the IMF, while they were discussing fiscal reform, they were also discussing pension reform.
Right.
Because the IMF was saying, 70% of a dollar going to salaries and pension. So you are left now with 30 cents.
And it only highlights the fact as well, George, that this conversation that we have it now isn't a today conversation.
No.
It is a conversation that we've been grappling with
For some time.
for quite some time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the government which formed the party that formed the new government inherited the Fiscal Responsibility Act with the attrition program, which is to every 10,
Three.
you could take 3.
Yes.
It definitely indicated that the labor movement, the public sector union was losing members. So to every 10 that goes, you lose 7. There's a guarantee that you will lose 7.
Right.
You may lose the 10 because some positions were exempted in going forward with the new IMF homegrown program. I think over 400 positions. Some were occupied, some were not. Became redundant. The government, that one, decided that they will go full speed ahead with the pension reform.
But let me ask you though, George, because I mean, we don't want to get bogged down with histories is well written. The reformation process for the pension, what exactly did it seek to achieve?
That's not coming to know.
Right.
And as you mentioned that point, it hurt me last night, Joe, when I heard the news that the CCJ threw all the case for the BICO policyholders. 800 million EC that they were asking for from BICO to pay to policyholders. Hundreds of policyholders had the money there for the pension. So even if he speak, that struck me like a dagger.
So there's the challenge of BICO, and now there's still
the final
challenge.
quote.
Right. And yet there's still uncertainty in terms of if you're a civil servant.
So I'm just making the point how important it is to discuss pension. Whether reform or whatever, how it is important, as you said earlier, that pension is very sensitive to a person's well-being after they would have worked, the sole case out.
And then when it's all over and done, it speaks to my future.
All you hear is
how do I survive at the end of my tenure as a civil servant?
The emperor just said thanks. So, it is in the public service, there are over 2,000 unestablished workers. Remember I said the 1958 pension guarantees full pension without workers putting 1 cent.
Right.
Full pension upon you attaining the age of 60.
Right.
So the discussion now had to be on how do we deal with the unestablished workers, who in some cases, when you add it up, were almost 80%.
And when you say unestablished workers,
they were not eligible because they were not appointed by the Public Service Commission. 2,000 plus. How do you treat with them? So it meant, therefore, that there was the established workforce, which the Public Service Commission knew about, and then there was the unestablished workforce, which was paid for from the ministerial budget.
Right.
But not appointed by the Public Service Commission. These workers left and are still living without 1 cent at the end of a tenure. Some work 20, some work 19, 22, 25. I've spoken to them. And Joe, it hurts So when the government won, the NDC won, the NDC decided, look, we will go into pension reform. The NDC paid the pension because the court gave a ruling.
Right.
Gave a ruling that it was unconstitutional for the pension not to be applicable to permanent employees.
Right.
So what the NDC did was to obey the court's ruling. Now, me, as a trade unionist, and I put on my trade union hat, I don't represent public workers, public officers, but I will have stick my foot in the ground and say I'm not discussing no reform.
Why not?
That's how trade unions operate. Trade unions ensure the best for its workers. Sometimes not even considering the cost.
So let me ask you, so the trade union is going to do what it's going to do. As we start the conversation of reform, what was the trade union's position? There was the original, what was, of course,
so
in the Constitution?
I say for me,
right.
I would have said, you see me, I'm sticking to the law.
Right.
But the union said, where we understand what is happening, we think that it won't be sustainable for the government to continue because the 1958 ruling, sorry, the 1958 requirement must have been considering about 200 workers maximum.
Okay.
But over the years, the public service has been expanding. So the union, understanding that sustainability and survivability was the issue here, the union said, well, look, we discuss the reform.
Okay.
As I tell you, me as a trade unionist, I would have said openly, no.
So we have the point
let's deal with the law. But the union decided they want to discuss the reform.
So how is the reform?
Which is magnanimous on their part, which is good, which is humane.
Right.
They decided, look, let's talk reform. Let's see how we will get these people something.
So if we move from 1958, here we are.
Here we are today.
2004.
So that's where we are right now.
Right. So we've gotten backdrop. So what's the trade, the process? What does it offer, and how exactly are we going to achieve this?
Okay. So the government came up with a roadmap. They came up with a roadmap. A three-point agenda.
We're keeping our eyes on the clock for those of you who
First of all,
just joining the program.
They decided.
Judge Mason, yes.
First of all, they decided they will go forward in 3 phases.
Mm-hmm.
They will, from January 1st, 2024, all new employees will have to pay a contributory pension plan. Mm-hmm. Those who were there before, permanent, will continue enjoying the full pension that the government pays 100%.
Right.
Then they will start regularization, meaning those workers who have been acting will be made, they will put under will be examined to ensure that the requisite skill set
right.
to be appointed.
Right. And that's by the Public Service Commission.
Right.
Right.
So, and thirdly, they will look at those who are unestablished. Secondly, sorry, they look at those who are unestablished and how they can make them part of the permanent staff.
Right.
And thirdly, they look at the contract workers, because you have unestablished workers who are on contract, and then you have a set of workers who are employed as contract workers, which is different. Contract for service, which is different to what existed before. So the first stage the government implemented was to make those acting positions permanent.
Let me ask you, though, George. Give me, if you can, figures. As it stands now, the total sum of those workers, public servants in question, those who were there, those who were acting in positions and not necessarily, they have not been examined or they plan to be examined, and those that are on contract. How many workers are we looking at in total?
I'll give that in a while. But it's close to 700 workers.
It's close to 700?
Yes.
Okay.
7,000, sorry.
Oh, well, when you said 700 there, because I'm asking myself, okay.
Close to 7,000.
Okay, it's close to 7,000.
I have the exact
right.
figure.
So that's your range.
But for the program ends, you'll get it. Yeah. So there is exactly 3,000 and plus who are unestablished, who are going home even right now as we sit.
Right.
Some are going home because they are reaching age of 60 and they are going home without thanks.
Right.
If at all they get thanks.
And
so it is important and that way the discussion comes now, the role of a union. It is important that the union responsibly look at how we go forward and ensure that justice is done in the negotiation.
So where are we at present with that conversation?
The unions are saying that based on the salaries of some of the workers, and with the increase in NS and other statutory payments, government should increase, first of all, regularize those workers, and then have them incorporated so that the pension can be administered. So in other words, don't discuss pension reform. No. Have all these persons regularized first.
Right. So we create the basis for the pension reform, which would be regularization.
Yes. The government is saying that they cannot do everything one time. So they do it in stages. They will address those who are acting, and they will address those who are temporary, and there are those who are on assignment, and those who are probationary.
Right.
They will address that first. And the second phase, they look at the public service contract workers, the contract of service workers, the daily paid workers, and the letters of other appointees.
Is there so that way that's understood? Is there a timeline though for those different?
The government said that they want to introduce that in October, this October.
Right.
My concern is this can be turned, because I've been hearing on the ground that this can be used, and this will be used to remove the government.
To remove the government?
Yes. In other words, the pension reform issue will be used, will be pushed by the parties concerned to ensure that the government loses the next election. That's what I'm hearing. I'm not saying there's any facts to that. But I'm saying that as a trade unionist, we should ensure that we do what is best for the workers. because there's no guarantee that what is on the table now will be improved by somebody coming in.
So the trade unions...
In the meantime, while they wait, while they wrangle over what is to be done, it's like a passing parade. So you stand and watch workers go by, go home without a pension. As I said earlier, had it been me, it was better that you stand up for the law, and where it ends. But you can't be negotiating for the reform, and then in the middle of the reform, saying we're best to go back to ELA.
Okay. So we've advanced all of this conversation. Here we are. I want to put the conversation on hold because we need to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we can open the phone lines as well as we discuss the conversation of pension reform, the role of the union, and what happens going forward. Quick commercial break, Saluki, quick one, and we will be right back.
Tourism is me, tourism is you. Tourism is everybody, and tourism connects us all.
Did you know that tourism generates revenue and foreign exchange earnings?
Did you know it stimulates infrastructural development and facilitates cultural exchange among people?
You must know tourism is linked to all industries,
from agriculture to construction.
So support the industry today and be welcoming to all our visitors.
Tourism is my business. Tourism is your business. Tourism is our business. Listen, one and all. Tourism connects us all.
A message from the Ministry of Tourism
and the Grenada Tourism Authority.
You're invited to attend an important community meeting to discover all the exciting details about Project 500 on Wednesday, October 23rd at 5 p.m. Join us at the Housing Authority of Grenada's Dunfermline site and engage directly with the team behind the project. This is your chance to ask questions and learn how you, your family, and the community can benefit from this incredible housing opportunity. Your voice matters. Let's shape the future of affordable housing together. Don't miss the Project 500 community meeting on October 23rd.
You see, this Saturday, the night after Thanksgiving, Trade Center will never be the same. It's legends in concert with a difference. Different date, but the vibes go be nice. Super Blue coming from Trinidad by Tobago Crusoe, Yuma Faso, King Luther from Trinidad by, and then of course, I do remember Survivor, Papa and Trouble, and of course, I will be there. So you can't afford to miss this one. Legends in concert. Could somebody tell me? I really want to know how Legends in concert shaping up nice. So some say Kai is so dying, all of them is mook. Cause this year Legend going to be one for the history book. Them boy had to stop that value. Come down in Legend, and I know better come early, 7:30 sharp. We going to be Kaiso like water. Can't wait.
Welcome back to the program. 22 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock in the morning time. My guest this morning, George Mason, trade unionist, and this morning we are delving into, so we continue the conversation as it relates to pension reform. George, we understand it's important that pension speaks to the question of what happens to a person when the age of retirement comes. And they, unestablished, and they need to, as you say, move on to the next transition, to the next phase of their life. The conversation seeks to ensure that they go home with something.
Yes.
as it is, that playing field only covers certain amount of a certain percentage. The union is saying, listen, we need to fix this, but there are some roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
There are some issues that needs to be addressed. Let's discuss some of those issues, and then we're gonna entertain some calls. And tell me what is it that the union is doing so that we can fast track the process. Because very often it seems as though these processes seem to take forever and goes nowhere.
Yes.
Then an administration changes, and then we have to start all over again.
Yes.
What is the unions doing to fast forward to ensure that its members at least realize the efforts that's been made now?
Right. Now, the unions were encouraged recently to meet because it included public officers, it included prison and welfare association, because these are all those who will be affected. The concern for me, however, is that if this thing continues for too long, you will have people continuing to go home without a pension. So, putting on my trade union cap, I would like to see this thing resolved as soon as possible, with everybody getting what is equal to them.
How is that done? How do we get to that point?
So, the government has introduced, I told you I'll give you the information in a while. So for the established workers, as of June 2023, established workers were 3,700.
Right.
Unestablished were 1,057.
Right. And those on contracts?
And then you have another group called non-employee. Non-employee include 2,918.
And that non-employee, are those referring to that some refer to contract workers?
Yes.
Okay, contract workers. Right. So we have that scope of individuals that, of that amount, who qualifies at present to go home on a pension?
It will be 3,700.
So you literally, as it speaks now, there's
So that's 7,675 workers in total.
in total.
As of June last year.
Of that amount, 3,000 qualifies for pension.
Yes.
And the other 4,000 plus, they literally right now, they are in limbo.
Yes. And the average age of work, some 12.1 years, some
I mean, if you have been working for 12 years, it means you have been in the system for quite a while. How does a union now seek to fast forward the process? Because very often when it comes to waiting on government, those very often seem to takes its own pace. What is the trade union doing to fast forward, put some fire under the butts of government to ensure that, listen, time is running out, we can't afford to dilly-dally with this any further?
Well, the government has presented a platform as to how it wants to handle it.
Right.
How it wants to handle the unestablished workers, which is through a contributory pension plan. So as of January 1st, 2024, all new employees coming into the service will be eligible for pension.
Right.
But as a contributory pension.
Process, right.
The workers who were there and who are eligible because of their status in the Public Service Commission will continue to get the government fully paid pension.
So
the question then is, how do we deal with those who go home with nothing? And that is where the matter becomes sticky.
What's the plan?
The government intention is to make it contributory. The union is saying that some of the salaries are low. So when you continue to take up the statutory contribution, NIS has gone up, cost of living is going up, you find the worker will be going at the end of the day with very little from the paycheck. Now, that has its merit. But the overriding question is, what should be the end game? The end game should be, for me, and I'm speaking from a children point of view, the end game should be, if you're negotiating reform, you should be prepared to discuss the reform. If you want it to remain according to the law, debate on letting it be the law. But cannot be speaking on both sides of your mouth. As a matter of fact, the union shocked me. The union shocked me in a meeting we had with the Minister for Labour when we had a goodwill.
But hold on, when you said the union shocked you.
Yes.
Shocked you, but you are...
No, I remember, I'm not working in the public service.
Right.
I'm working in the private sector.
Okay.
So I tell you always jumping in thing.
Okay.
Only I tell you I like a jumping thing once I see injustice.
Okay.
So I was part of the TUC team, because I'm part of the management team, that visited the minister when she won. And the union said to the minister, we are willing to discuss pension reform. I tell you, I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
And you couldn't believe why?
Because you don't go into that, because you already have the law.
So the union's position is that we stick to what is prescribed under the law?
The union is saying, let's discuss.
Or the union wants to discuss?
And the union and the government say, okay, let's discuss.
So what's the problem?
And this is my plan. My plan is the unestablished workers should have a contributory plan from January 2024. Once you decide to go in there, that's where you should be going. So you cannot be going there and also looking back to the other position, which is the law. The law says that pension is, every worker is eligible for pension. So every worker in the government service.
So are we saying that up until this point, as we discuss reform, that we have not come to a centralized position as to a meeting of the minds as to what's going to be the driving principle going forward? Is it that we haven't?
No.
So this reformation process is what? This is not going anywhere with it.
Presently, it's not going anywhere.
We hold that thought right there. Good morning, caller. You're alive.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning. When we hear what's happening, and to you, and also to my friend, Brother Mason, when we hear what happened in United States, what may happen in another 2 weeks, and I'm hearing what's going on here now, it tells me that we are in a period of, I would say, irrational thinking in the world. And for those who read the Bible a lot to speak about the second coming of Christ, he better come quickly. Because a lot of this irrational thinking cannot go on. They're not sustainable. Now, I'm hearing Mr. Mason speaking a lot about the law. But we cannot eat our cake and have it. If we want to stick to the law, well, then we have to abandon the whole thing of the NIS. That the NIS is after the law. We can't have both. You know, there are many public servants, retirees now, who are getting more money than they ever worked for. When you add these two together, the contributing part and the non-contributing part, the NIS was instituted so that it will be fully contributing, part by government, part by the employee. But you want that, and you also want the government to fully contribute another pension. So the NIS is in law. So if you want to stick to the law, then abandon the NIS and let us deal with whatever results from that. But you can have the law fully. He's talking about thinking as a public servant or as a trade unionist, but you have to think as a rational being. We can't have both. There must be some meeting of the minds. There must be some compromise. The two cannot go on in a sustainable way.
Okay,
that's my concern.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, and this is why I'm saying that the unions to my shock, because I know trade unionism, you hold on to your best, and your best is what you have. However, the union bend over backwards, compromise. The same point Brother Jude making. The union bend over backwards, and the discussion started.
Right.
Now, while the discussion is going on, you're hearing some little undercurrent that you will use this to ensure the government fall.
I would assume that the union would always be seeking to serve the better good of its workers. You would seem reasonably that that's part of its mantra. Is it a case in this, when it comes to pension, are we suggesting that the union in some way, they have forgotten their responsibility?
No, the union is ready to discuss. Remember, the union is comprised of different leadership.
So if the union is ready to discuss, are we saying that government is the one that's holding on the process?
No, there are persons who will prefer that this matter be railroaded.
Well, no, I understand that. And these persons, whoever they
The
are.
government, however, is going full speed ahead in ensuring that these people live with a pension.
No, and I'm understanding that. The challenge that I have is that there is the trade unions, there's the government. We voted green, we want to do this. Whoever these third-party elements that you are purporting that they are, how do they get involved here? What is that? Is that they have an influence over the union? So you're saying that the union has been hijacked by a third party?
I'm not. You say that.
I'm asking because it seems that way to me.
I am not using those words you are using.
But I know. But
however,
is my conclusion reasonable?
Going forward, the point I am trying to get to is that at the end of the day, these people are suffering. These unestablished workers are suffering. They are going home into poverty. The government has decided we have a contributory pension plan. The union agreed to discuss the contributory pension plan, but under current, you are hearing that let's create some problem. So at the end of the day, the government will fall.
So I am hearing that the union has been hijacked somewhere, because those undercurrents seem to have greater influence. That's what I'm hearing.
You said it, eh?
That's what I'm hearing. I'm asking you either to agree or disagree. But good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning. And good morning to Brother Mason. Brother Mason, all these years, union representing the workers in this country, you all ever sit with the workers to look down the line? You all collect a pension for a contribution every month from workers, and I'll just sit with the workers and allow the government to put all your representatives and contract for 18 years. I'll never see that one of these days these workers and them would be out and they're going home and they should be well packaged to go home. The union in this country, as far as I see, they let down the workers big time for the way they operate and allow the government to abuse people in working with government over 20 years, and they don't have a letter in their hand. The union didn't see it. This was abuse and advantage to the workers. Now you're hearing workers complaining in the system for all these years, and I don't even have a letter to show that I was employed with the government. You know how much heartbreak some of these workers going through today just because of some of the all union? Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you very much, caller. And this is why this government is doing its best to ensure that these workers go home with something.
Would it be prudent, shouldn't it be prudent that as part of this reformation process, that there be a timetable set that would allow for, because I'm getting the sense where we are, you're talking about undercurrents that we may never ever get to realize this pension reform. We go to the telephone lines there. Good morning, caller, you're live.
Yes, good morning, greetings, and greeting to your guest, Brother Mason. Brother Mason, this is Rollo here. I hear you, my brother, and hear the passion in you and so on. But my question is this: have you ever thought that one of the the principal reason why we have reached a stage, this quote-unquote cul-de-sac, as it relates to the pensions of the workers of this country, when we look back at the desires or the previous intentions of the revolution when the NIS was established, have you ever thought that it is in effect the pit latrine pamphlet of the imperial order and council of the king's most excellent majesty in which this country continues to live, a document and a situation imposed upon us that we cannot rectify things on our own accord, with all the unions and the people sitting to resolve it because of the influence of this colonial constitution? Have you ever thought of that? I ask you to join me in the calling for a referendum to decide whether we wish to continue to live in this status or to write our own constitution where we shall discuss pension and establish something in interest of all the people into the future. I hope the question is understood. Thank you very much for what it's worth. Have a nice day, please, will you, sir?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Citizen Rollo. And you know, Citizen Rollo, I have your back. I'm totally in agreement with that. But going back to the where we are, there's a timeline. The government said October.
Right.
Today is what? What is they showing there?
We're at the end of October, at least.
Right. And the government is prepared to do whatever it takes to ensure that pension reform takes place.
Right. So
I'm making that point again. The government said in October they will bring to the parliament a bill to ensure that these workers get a pension.
And you've seen that to me unequivocally that government is committed to that.
They are committed to that.
However, you're saying that there are
some roadblocks.
Undercurrents that, in my estimation, has infiltrated the trade union movement at whichever end, and is creating these unnecessary hindrances.
I'm on the outside. I represent the private sector.
Right, but what is it you've seen?
I've been hearing.
Are those legitimate?
I've been hearing tidbits.
As a trade union boss yourself, are those legitimate conversations, undercurrents that you're hearing, and how concerned are you?
I'm very concerned about it.
That is the case.
I'm very concerned. What I'm concerned is that there are people who are willing to deny this thousands of workers another 3, another 4, another 5 years where they could be taken care of right now.
Is that those undercurrents? Are those people that are they those individuals that have political aspirations?
Of course.
Okay.
I could answer you on that, yes.
So in Grenada, there are persons who have political aspirations who you're saying to me are willing to deny the working class of Grenada an opportunity to get a pension because of their own political experience.
That's right.
And you're willing to stand by that.
I won't support that.
Now, when I say stand by you're willing to stand by your position.
Yes.
That's what it is.
That's right. It hurts me when a worker could tell me, I walk up from the hospital, Brother Mason, I work for 25 years and I go on with nothing.
And I've heard that argument before, but George, you could hope you're understanding that the assertion that you're making here, the implications that it's having, because in Grenada our political spectrum is quite limited.
Oh, what?
The political spectrum
is limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been
and everybody know.
It has always been a two-party
I'm the only trade unionist who declare we are standing. And I came out publicly in the campaign for pension.
So let's assume
that pension be paid.
So if in fact
I, as a private sector trade unionists was in the front, back and center in the match.
So are you willing to openly, based on what you're hearing, take a position that allows you to name them and shame them, those individuals that are deliberately disenfranchising the working class people of Grenada? As a trade unionist, are you willing to stand up right here and now and make that declaration as to who those individuals or organizations?
No, it is not. It is not trade unionists, but the tremors. You know, when you're about quick, your tremors away from the center. But I know where the connection is as to why these snippets are being made. Let's drag it out until they collapse. Because the anticipation is that the government promise that I drop off a pen, they'll make all workers permanent. Now, can make that statement in the same breath with pension. That is a different matter entirely. Pension reform is different to job security, permanent.
Again, I'm seeing here, I'm getting a sense yet again that politics, again, where the people of Grenada, they are in a position where they are being duped and fooled, and there are others who think others who you are certain are using the hard-working class people of Grenada, who are the very same people who would vote to install administrations. They are using them for their own political expedience, knowing fully well at the end of the day that they are going to go home empty-handed. And their trade union elements at present who are willing to accept that. So again, the trade union, let's just say the trade union has sold out its membership then. Because if the government is ready to parley, as they say, if they're ready to come to the table, then the only other element that's not part of the conversation has to be the trade union. What say you?
The trade unions bend over backwards to pension reform.
But the trade union needs now to get their house in order then.
They bend over backwards. I say it was a magnanimous move to go to the
but it wasn't a move, it was probably just a gesture.
But while the pension reform is being discussed, you're hearing rumors in the background.
So, and fine, I'm okay with that. There is always going to be rumors. Unless you're saying those rumors, they have already infiltrated the current trade union scheme.
I could say that.
You could say that or will say that?
Yeah.
Or is that in fact the case?
I could say that.
That the trade union has been infiltrated by external elements?
I could say that the trade union movement has always been a target for opposition forces. Always. The best friend the opposition has is the labor movement. But we have gone too far and we have lost too much to continue playing that game.
We would leave that conversation right there. The trade union has been infiltrated by external elements. Whoever those elements are, Brother George has indicated that the government is committed to its position. However, it seems, and it can be reasonably concluded that all is not right within the house between the trade union and its membership. Are they being sold out? That's a conversation for another day, and then when we do this again right here on To The Point. Well, it's about 4 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. This is as far as I can take you. I want to say thanks to my guest this morning, George Mason. Thanks to all our listeners and all our viewers. Indeed, it was a pleasure being here with you on To The Point. The conversation continues on the mid-morning buzz, when I'll be back with you to discuss some other matters of national interest and for you, the listeners of Classic in the Morning Time. Until then, so long, everybody.